This is the disembodied voice of Dan St.Yves, and for today I'm with the Artistic Director of Storybook Theatre, JP Thibodeau. How are you doing today, JP?
Great. How are you?
Before I forget, congratulations. July is 1 year since you've been in your role here.
Absolutely is. It's been a year. It's been a crazy year. It's been a year and a half that I've been here with Storybook, but it's an official year of me as the Artistic Director.
So
exciting.
Originally, you were interim director.
Correct.
And then took over July 1st.
That's right.
Can you give us a little bit of a view into what Storybook was before you came in and what your vision is moving forward?
Yeah, Storybook, for the last 2 years, it's our 40th anniversary. So it's been a staple here in Calgary for quite a while. And so I don't think I'm bringing anything new to Storybook. I'm just kind of harnessing all the great stuff that Storybook provided the community and really making it its own. I think as a young and emerging artist here in Calgary, it was difficult for me to find work and to find ways to integrate myself into the professional community. And so over years of doing that and slowly getting to where I am today, when this kind of prospect came forward, it was a great way to kind of harness the professional world and the amateur world and bring them together. And that's really what my mandate and focus has really been over the last year for sure. Before that, Storybook was great. There was never anything wrong with it. It was really just trying to find out what the original intention was, almost 40 years ago from the original board of directors, what they saw Storybook Theatre becoming. And talking to many of those original board members, the idea was for it to be, Calgary's premier TYA professional company was their dream. And it's not that it hasn't become such, it's certainly been a staple for the community. And in my time here, my hope is to really elevate the branching of artists in the professional world to the community world and allowing them to work together. Mark Bellamy said it best when he was here that, it allowed him it reminded him of where he started and that passion that drove him to make this his career choice. And that's really what I think amateur theater should really be, is providing an outlet for people who are looking to make this a career and an outlet for people who just want to continue embracing the arts in this way.
And amateur theater, but your last production, I happened to catch Shrek the Musical. Wow, what a production. And that's showing in all the award nominations, and even yourself. You've racked up a number of nominations for set design, and there was something else, I believe.
Lighting design for this.
Yeah, pretty incredible. It was captivating. So the theory is for children of all ages, which I love, but boy, it captivates the higher end of those children of all ages.
And I think that's kind of the misnomer out there with when you say the word community. For me, I try not to use it, not because I don't believe in community or the community that makes things happen, because ultimately that's what amateur theater is a community of people coming together to create a show. My feeling is that community can include professionals, it can include amateurs, and together they're going to create something, and that doesn't need to be low quality. And I think that's the negative connotation attached to community theater, is that's low budget, bad acting, bad singing. It's just people trying to put on a show, and it doesn't have to be that. It could just be a sense that these people aren't paid. It's just passionate people putting on a show, and it's all walks of life and all levels. And so there's no reason the show has to suffer in quality simply because people aren't trained in the arts. You can have someone who's completely just passionate and it's not their profession by day, who can be just as good as a professional lighting designer or professional actor, but they just chose not to make this their career choice, right? And so that's an important factor of this. And you touched right on it with the idea that it is for all ages, right? It's as a father of a 7-year-old and 4-year-old, in my 7-year-old, when he was 3 and 4, we'd take him to see shows, and I would sit there just shaking my head saying, this is not fun. And not because the people weren't trying hard on stage, but they didn't think about me, right? They thought about my child only. And I think that's the big idea for Storybook, is that just because we're producing TYA doesn't mean we're just thinking about the kids. We're thinking about the parents who paid for the tickets, who need to come with the child, to escort them to the show. They have to kind of enjoy it too, or A, they're not going to come back, but B, they're not going to encourage their child to go and see other shows because they're going to think they're all like this and there's nothing in it for them. So we really want to make sure that there's something in it for the entire family, and the whole family can enjoy what they're seeing on stage, whether it's the set or lights. I'm sure there are some of our TYA shows the parents kind of they know where the story's going from the first heartbeat of the music, right? So there's no intrigue in it for them, but the spectacle can be there, so they can really have a great time and want to come back with their child and share theater with their children.
The big thing with radio used to be theater of the mind, but here it's certainly for Storybook theater of the imagination. You've done some stuff with some pretty big name like Big. So you are capturing stuff that's relevant to adults as well as children, but there's that your theme there, the season for imagination, or it's time to imagine. Where did that all come about?
For me, when I took over as artistic director, it was important to kind of figure out what I was saying as an artist and being in charge of Storybook. And so I went through all the other theater companies in Calgary, went through theater companies across Canada, and kind of looked at how they lay their seasons out. Everyone had a theme. Everyone had a purpose. Whether it was a titled theme or you could just see thematically the shows this year dealt with whatever that was. It was something they had. There was a thread to the season, and that was important for me to figure out how could we do this. Last year we did the season to believe, and it worked out well because it was kind of a new idea for Storybook, and all our shows had a theme of belief. And the last song of our season was I'm a Believer, which was part of Shrek. So it really tied everything together well. This season we went with the season to Imagine. And again, the last song of this season will be Pure Imagination, which is part of Willy Wonka. And so it was really just this thread of what's childlike, but what is also thematic for adults and everyone what will we all connect to? And we all believe in imagination. And so this season is all about imagination, and every show this season has that connection to children imagining, people imagining. Peter Pan, biggest dreamer and imaginer. Everything is about imagination. So it's a great way to connect your season, to tie everything together, and it was an important way for me to bring relevance to every show that was coming into the season.
For people that aren't from the Calgary area, your background is such that you've had a long career in theater as an actor, quite a singer, and as well now with design and stuff. So does this allow you as artistic director to really exercise every muscle that you've got?
It does, and that could be to the detriment of everyone. It's a lot to run a theater company, and it's a lot to take a theater company that is community-based and elevate it to a level where you're incorporating professionals, where they're used to a certain way things work. I hate to use Mark again as an example, but he's a great example, because last year when I first took over, I didn't know how everything was going to come together effortlessly. And it didn't come together effortlessly. There was a lot of work that went into it. But we started everyone's shows, even the shows that only started in April, they all started in September last year. And the production manager for Shrek announced she was pregnant at that time, and gave birth to her child 2 days before opening of Shrek. So Mark, kind of made the joke that he'd never been part of a production where someone actually announced they were pregnant and gave birth to the child in the same production. So it was a long process. So this year I've really streamlined the process to work for professionals. And the hard part for me was trying to figure out how I could fit into all of that to really connect to the artists, connect to the shows, and not completely be involved or be involved. This year I'll be directing 2 shows, and more the reason, the biggest reason for that is because those shows are 3-month processes. They're just too big of shows to condense into a 1-month process with Willy Wonka and Peter Pan. And it's exciting for me, but in the same vein, it's more out of what the show necessitates. And so those shows will also have mentors on them. Simon Mallet and Kevin McKendrick will mentor on those shows to allow the actors who are involved to still get that professional experience. Not that I'm not professional enough, but I think everyone has something to learn, even myself, and I want to keep learning and growing. So even though I'm attached to shows as a lighting designer or a set designer, it's more out of how I can be involved in the shows and assist and be there, as opposed to just sitting back and letting shows take their course. Because I think it's important right now in these early years to really figure out what works best for production and how to navigate through the storms that will arise once in a while. So
You've mentioned Mark Bellamy a couple of times. With your connections here, I've seen you in other productions. Are you able to tap into some of these other professional and community theatre actors, directors, for some of the stuff for Storybook?
Absolutely. That's been the key. And I think that's what I brought with me when I took over, was the idea that I wouldn't say that I'm well connected to every single person in Calgary. I know of every person, and I'm sure there's connections through friends of friends, the 6 degrees of separation or 1 degree or whatever it ends up being. But that's ultimately what, I'm really hoping I can help bridge that gap with. And I've been fortunate enough to work with some great people that have many a connection. And it's a quick reach out to say, I'm looking for someone who might fit the bill for this. What do you think? And they'll throw me in the direction of someone else that they think is, suited towards the project. And that happened this year with Paul Welch and Mike Griffin, who are two of the directors who've, been working in Calgary and are starting to make names for themselves. Paul mostly is an actor, so he's kind of bridging or spreading his wings into the world of directing for us for this season. And that's where, I was 10, 15 years ago, right? Trying to figure out how I could break in and make my way. And it's, I wish that there was something out there for someone to say to me, do you want to try this? Right? Because I think with budget cuts and funding the way it is, sponsorship being the way it is, it's tough to take risks, right? And as a big company, you're worried about trying out new directors because you still have to fill your seats and make your theater company thrive. And so it's easier to go with the people that have been working in Calgary for a while or working across Canada. So it's I can appreciate also the hard part of being a professional company, and taking that risk. When do you take that risk? When's the right time? And for us, every time's the right time, because there's no nothing to lose for us, because it's a learning experience, and the mandate for us is about growth and pushing everyone to their growing edge. Director, actor, keeping everyone learning and growing, and that's our mandate. And so it's easy for us to take the risk on someone who's never directed before but has been working in Calgary as a professional actor for years. Karen Johnson-Diamond is a fantastic example. She directed our first show of my first season, New Canadian Kid, last year, and it was her kind of first foray into directing. I don't think anyone would believe that, because she's been around for so long and such a driving force in the heart of Calgary's theater scene. But it was her first her directorial debut last year, and I would use her again in a heartbeat, because the people she took, she elevated them to a new level, right? And that's what's most important for me, is taking these young amateurs or emerging artists and fostering growth in them so that they can be seen in a new light.
And at the same time, you've got a young enough audience that can get jazz, and that's one of the other functions of Storybook Theatre. You've got acting camps. There's so much going on here for people to get involved and maybe end up being a part of a production down the road.
For sure. It's building that audience base. It's back to what I said about the parents wanting to come see theater and take their kids to theater, and using these younger people, or even in mainstays like Mark or Karen, in our productions as mentors or as artists. There's longevity for them, right? So these young people who come and see a show directed by, Paul Welch this year, we'll go see a show at Vertigo perhaps, and Paul Welch will be in the show. That's the guy who directed there. And then in 20 years, Paul, is a mainstay here in Calgary or across Canada, or whatever it ends up being for him. And those people relate it to when they first saw a show here at Storybook, right? And I think that's important, is that, everybody gets their start somewhere, and you all have your connection. And lots of artists in Calgary and professionals working in Calgary, got their start doing a Storybook show 20 years ago. And so, Christian Goots is an example of that, where he got his start doing, I don't know if he got his start per se, but definitely while he was a young guy, was doing shows here at Storybook. And, it's for many of the professionals out there, there's a connection to Storybook, and it's kind of that never-ending circle, right? It's maintaining it and giving Storybook a place and purpose in Calgary. And for me, that's fostering growth, and we've changed up our lineup in such a way that we no longer cast children. in our shows, where previous to, I wouldn't say even previous to me, my predecessor, he had kind of slowly stopped that as well, where young children weren't really performing in the shows, but there used to be a portion of our programming called cookie cabarets, and it was usually young kids performing, a fairy tale or a nursery rhyme or something like that. And the idea is fantastic, but you had two very extreme theater experiences for people, and that for me was where I wanted to bring it closer together, so that no matter what show was being produced, you knew the quality would be the same. And then we have our theater school programming, which allows for those students who want to be in theater, but they're under the age of 16, to come and learn. And we employ professional actors in Calgary to teach the courses and programming, so they get an actual experience. And so the idea for me is that they'll come when they're 6, do the schooling until they're 16 to 18, and then start auditioning for shows, and then be in our shows, kind of learn how a show works. And then from there, if they want to make this their career, they'll go to school and come back and be actors here in Calgary. So there's a lifetime that you can put into growing and learning here, and that's kind of what I think you need in theater, right? You need somewhere to learn how it really is, and not the hobbyist's idea of putting on fun skits, right? There's work. It's a lot of work. We have our theater camp going on right now, which is Shakespeare, and I know that our 16-year-olds that are in the program right now are, I want my summer, right? It's I signed up for Shakespeare, but I wanted to have a summer, right, and have a summer camp that I'm playing, but it's work. Memorizing Shakespeare, it's not for everyone, right? So these 16-year-olds are learning that theater's work, and to be a good actor, even when you choose to sign up for just a fun summer camp, it's still work, and sometimes that's lost on our public, right? How much work goes into making things look so easy. I would say that's where the hardest lesson for me to learn these last few years is that you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into everything, and you make everything look so effortless that everyone thinks, what a piece of cake. Right? You think, oh, sometimes I want things to break on stage so people realize how hard it is to make that happen, right? But that's part of the magic too.
I've talked to you before, and I think I've brought this up with other actors as well, that in Canada, to try and make a career out of this, you're spending half of your time out on the road, you have no time with your family. So to be able to be in a role like yourself as an artistic director and have some roots must be phenomenal.
I've been fortunate. My entire career I've been fortunate to luck out in that regard, where I've kind of been able to stay home and do what I love to do. I started out for 10 years doing dinner theater and working in that vein, and it was a great learning lesson. Dinner theater is its own beast, especially when you're out in Canmore, taming the tourist beast. It's not easy, and so I picked up a lot of skills doing that, and self-producing and doing things there. But yeah, it's been nice. Part of me always thinks, is that limiting me? Should I be going out and doing other things? But at the end of the day, the question is, are you happy? And as an artist, that's kind of the goal: is are you living the passion, and are you okay with the dream being where it is, right? And as a young teenager, I think every actor thinks, I'm gonna have an Academy Award by the time I'm 23, right? And it's still a great dream to think that big. But at the end of the day, I think in any job, whether you're oil and gas or theater, it's do you go home happy and fulfilled, right? Is your bucket full, or is it continually empty? And I spent years with an empty bucket, and now I'm kind of in a place where it's a full bucket every day. And there's certainly days where the bucket gets dumped on my head, but for the most part, the bucket's full, and I can't ask for a better community and place to be.
So we're doing this interview in some of the Storybook Theatre physical space, but you reside online as well. For people that want to find out more, you're on Facebook, Twitter, so they should be checking out all those spaces to get involved and get tickets and be involved for the shows.
Absolutely, yeah. We do everything online through Facebook and through our website, and we're very accessible that way. Ultimately, the best part about the accessibility is that our volunteers can always access us that way, and there's always volunteer opportunities. Every show needs ushers, every show needs set crew, and so everyone can access us that way, which has really helped in terms of the volunteers. Last year we had almost 2,000 volunteers support the shows and bring the shows to life. So I think without the internet, I can't even imagine the struggles without the internet and the phone calls and the phone trees and how it used to be done. It's certainly opened up a lot of doors, and I think it's opened up a lot of accessibility to the public to figure out, I don't feel like being on stage. I don't know how to do anything, but I want to be involved somehow. How can I be involved? And that's certainly opened the doors for those people who go, oh, I can go and help paint a wall. How fantastic. Or wallpaper, or hang a light, or learn how to hang a light. So it's great. And ultimately, the key for our volunteers is that there is no experience necessary. There's always someone there to teach. And that's what we're here for, is to teach and grow. And that's from our set crew to the backstage crew, to the usher crew, to the actors and crew on stage.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our time. Is there anything I haven't touched on that you'd like to make sure that we squeeze into the article?
Mostly it's our theatre school programming. That beyond our shows is our theatre school program. And like I said, it offers kids from 6 to 16 an opportunity to learn from people who are actually working out there in the community, trying to make a go at this or making a go at this. And the programming offers different levels. But last year we introduced a program called Spotlight. And the focus of Spotlight is to actually give kids a time on stage. And so we have 4 levels of that, and one is Glee, which is pretty self-explanatory. A new one called Footwork, where they'll do creative movement and create a dance piece, so to speak, a theater dance piece at the end of their 10-week session. And we have our improv course, which this year will be taught by Karen Johnson-Diamond and Aaron Coates, which it was last year as well, and huge acclaim last year from the students who did it. I mean, I want to take it. It's Karen Johnson-Diamond and Aaron Coates. Who wouldn't want to take it? And then our bigger program is called Collective Creation and Center Stage. And Collective Creation is giving kids the chance to just create a show in 10 weeks. And the bigger program we started last year on a whim and a prayer is called Center Stage. And Center Stage, the kids work, I'll say in tandem, but it's a little bit loosely in tandem, with the year-end show, which this year is Willy Wonka. So this year the kids will do Willy Wonka Kids. And so they'll work with the actors and the choreographers and the people on that show and bring their own show to life, but they'll do their show on the set with costumes, with props from the actual main stage show, and they'll have their own kind of show to do it in. But it gives the students an opportunity to feel like they're performing in that big scale show, but without, the general public kind of coming to see that show and going, why are there kids doing this show? So it kind of is this great duality where we can offer these young people a chance to be on stage and feel what it feels like and spark that interest in them to want to make this a career, or just support the arts once they move on to their careers as doctors or zoologists or whatever they end up being. So the theatre school programming is really growing, and for me I really hope to see it grow even further, where it's offering a lot of professional experiences, so much like the shows, but it's a teaching environment where they really are here to learn and become better than they were when they walked in.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you've got the theatre school going on right now. You're preparing for the debut of Les Mis. So, JP, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Dan.